Okay, so I'm live. It seems. Alright, sure, 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 sure. Mm-hmm. Sure, sure, sure. Yeah, sure. Alright, okay. Sure, 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 sure. Ah, sure, sure, sure. That's great music, bro. That's great music. That's just good music. It is a blast. Fucking good music. Okay. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, this will be one of my most boring streams to ever happen because people are quite sleeping at this point and I won't be making a lot of noise. Even though I have a bit of leeway to make some noise, that won't be one of the things I choose the most, man. But I'm trying to get used to this live streaming things. Of course, I started this shit more than 2 months ago, and yeah, I mean, nothing much is happening as of lately. I won't say I have a lot of following or anything like that. It's just that it's learning and development at this point. But I'm in no rush to blow up or to have something big in this early of a time. But I'd like you to be patient with me as chat, and I'll try to make a lot of videos to bring in some new audience, even though that's also difficult because I have few people or few members that I have in as part of the chat. So with that being said, I think I can get into it. Okay, I think that's the most we can do for now. So I don't know what I'll be doing in this live stream. I wanna lie. I don't know what I'll be doing. So I will be trying to do certain things, just a few certain things. But especially I would like to react to Kabaddi. I'm not sure how many individuals know Kabaddi. Okay, I think we're going to react to Zack first. I think I'm going to react to Zack, and then after Zack, I'm going to do some Kabaddi, and then everything will be fine. So please bear with me while I tried to get this shit working, Yeah. So this is what my FYP looks like originally. It's Asmon Gold. It is Gotham Chess. It is JJK module. That's what my FYP looks like. I have the Empire and Dayland page over there. I don't know what this shit is. Let me just remove it. Not interested. Yeah. And then South Africa versus Angola, type thing. So let's start with this one because I feel like that's the same video.
Users on TikTok realizing they can just copy paste the redacted text to read what it says.
Oh, look at this pesky redaction. Let's just get rid of that.
Nah, bro. Whoa. Nah, no way.
No way. Try it? We're going to try it right now. Open in Adobe. All right, now we're going to copy this. We're going to save it. And this is from the government website right here, justice.gov.
No ways.
The moment of truth. We're talking about this is the federal.
Nah, these are top secrets in the US. These are the secrets that can bring a government down or they can cause serious damage, and this is how they get out. No way. Oh, I really can't believe this shit. What are you saying now, Zach? Can't hear you.
We're talking about this is the federal government, and they can't figure out how to put a black bar over some.
Just for context, this is not all files, but on multiple PDFs, the government, instead of redacting the information using the Adobe function, they highlighted the text with the black
bar.
Check page 41. Okay, I'm not suicidal. Defendants also conceal their.
Asman Gold just said I'm not suicidal. Nah.
Sex trafficking and abuse conduct by paying large sums of money to participant witnesses, including by paying for their attorney's fees and their case costs. Epstein also threatened harm to victims and helped release damaging stories about them to damage their credibility when they tried to go public with their stories of being sexually trafficked and abused. Why was that blocked? I don't know. For which Indike Executory Authority, acting on his behalf, payments from this account totaling almost $60,000 were transferred by.
Let me say a few things as a South African when it comes to the Epstein files, I don't know shit, ladies and gentlemen. When it comes to the Epstein files, I know nothing. I know absolutely nothing when it comes to the Epstein files. So, knowing how things are and how things are turning out, it's not a very good look. This is not a very good look, because the whole world is looking at this situation with Epstein, and it's not like it is the first time we see a situation like this. No, we've been going through moments like this, because we have like Diddy files and Diddy moments, but the biggest one is the Epstein and the Epstein Island. It's either you deal with this in a more civil way as a government, and like they had to protect their parts, all of them. All of them had to protect their parts. If they couldn't stand together as the government to shield this from getting out, and because right now it seems like the office is trying to use the Epstein files to attack each other. Bill Clinton, whoever, but the most person who is suffering from this is Bill Clinton himself. So imagine being Bill Clinton and knowing that Trump is also on those files, but Trump is not showing himself on those files. So low key, this is not something you can underestimate, and this is bad. This is really, really bad.
But on multiple PDFs. The government, instead of redacting the information using the Adobe function, they highlighted the text with the black marker.
Check page 41. Okay. I'm not suicidal.
He's not.
Defendants
He's
also
not
attempted
suicidal.
to conceal their criminal sex trafficking and abuse conduct by
Defendant also attempted to conceal their criminal sex trafficking. Ladies and gentlemen, even if you put this shit in big English or what, that basically means what happens in the dark shall find its way to the light. Nothing stays. What the fuck now?
paying large sums of money to participant witnesses, including by paying for their attorney's fees and their case costs. Epstein also threatened harm to victims and helped release damaging stories about them to damage their credibility when they tried to go public with their stories of being sexually.
Ain't it funny that a man that was threatening victims just died immediately after getting caught? This man just died. Like, what the fuck, man? He was supposed to be the big bad guy, you know? Like, how can he just die when I was like that? You can't have a villain and then a villain just dies. That doesn't make sense.
Sexually trafficked and abused. Why was that blocked? I don't know. For which Indike Executory Authority, acting on his behalf, payments from this account totaling almost $60,000 were transferred by wire to young women. Why would this be censored? The law didn't say you can make an exception for that. It doesn't make any sense. They're redacting any mention of anyone outside the known circle interacting with Epstein. People want to know who these people are. I think that's exactly what's going on. Indike, an attorney who'd represented Epstein.
The thing is, the more they hide situations like this, the more they try to hide, the more they try to ignore situations like this, I feel like the government will fall sooner or later. Like, it's going to be a very big blow, because if people don't trust the right anymore, because there's a left and a right in the US, and apparently, I'm not sure which side Trump is at, you know, but the other side is usually the one that's painted as the bad guys, you know. But if no one trusts the government anymore,
For decades, represents Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth and previously represented Donald Trump. So let me get this straight. The guy who was found to be wiring money, supposedly hush money, to these young girls, never got indicted. He left his job. He got hired by the group that represents both the current defense secretary and Donald Trump. The files that were released now just
it
came out
is a
being
community at this point.
redacted from them. Somebody got caught with their hand in a cookie jar.
Yeah.
The Epstein file drops her bombshell. Epstein personally negotiated contracts for Southern Air Transport, the CIA, Iran's Contradon running airline.
What? Epstein personally negotiated for South Air Transport. Like, am I getting this very clear? Like, how big was this guy? Like, how big was Epstein? Because you have Michael Jackson big, you have Donald Trump big. How big is Epstein? Oh.
And relocated its ops from Miami to a Columbus, Ohio military base to service his companies. The link straight. What the fuck? Bro,
Like, what the fuck,
how
man?
is this guy able to do all this?
Like, exactly. Like, how was Epstein allowed to do all these things? That, like, this is fucking, like, you cannot believe this. Like, how is this even possible? In a structure of a government, like in a well-oiled structure like America, how is Epstein allowed to do all these things? Like, you have the CIA, there's nothing you don't have there, man. Like, the FBI, and this man was able to do something.
To a Columbus, Ohio military base to service his companies. The link straight. What the fuck? Bro, this guy. How is this guy able to do all this?
How, man?
If he wasn't such a fucking creep, I'd be impressed.
Yeah.
Every president, and they come to his house, and they have a picture of the former president
Bill. Whoa.
How is this guy able to do all this stuff? If he wasn't such a fucking creep, I'd be impressed.
Yeah, me too, dog.
Every president, and they come to his house, and they have a picture of the former president Bill Clinton in a dress. There's another photo. He's running CIA deals between Iran, the United States, Israel, and then
Like, how?
to his own companies. Yeah,
Oh,
it's like he was the main character. Well, he was the main villain.
how
Okay.
was this
Part
even
Doge
possible,
changes,
man?
canceled all of the Adobe user licenses, can't properly redact without Adobe Pro. Elon was the whistleblower all along. So are you
Hmm.
telling me that the reason why we lose these, we not getting the redactions, is because Elon cut Adobe Pro membership? Here's what's crazy about it, is that we found this out in like 15 minutes.
Nah, that was wild, I have to say. That is really,
And this is from
really wild. When it comes to Epstein and all his shenanigans, man, I really find it really hard to believe, because besides the fact that Epstein is a creep, man, how can one man have this much power? Because I don't think it's the first time I've heard about links between Epstein and the Israel government. I'm not saying that allegedly. It's not from my word. It's something I heard from the internet. So when it comes to Epstein, like, we really have to understand who was Epstein with. Because it is important now to know who Epstein was involved with because of the power he had. And you don't know who else might go to get or to reach that power. Epstein might be gone, but someone who was close to Epstein might want the same lifestyle that Epstein had. And then if that's the situation, then what's supposed to happen? If that is the situation, what is supposed to happen? Because, man, Epstein seems to be way overpowered. Gang, okay, everything is going well. But Epstein is way too overpowered for my liking. I really have to say. Let me check if that reaction video was okay. So though, gentlemen, even if you put this shit in big English or what, that basically means what happens in the dark. Criminal sex trafficking. Ladies and gentlemen, even if you put this shit in big English or what, that basically means what happens in the dark shall find its way to the light. Nothing stayed. What the fuck? Yeah, everything was fine, but I think the sound was a bit low. And I don't know why my sound was that low, man. What? Oh, like, yeah. Jesus. So I think we can go and like react to the bigger version of that, because I really find the topic interesting when it comes to Epstein and his shenanigans, man. So come with me as we go to react to the Epstein file. But let's find out what Asmongold Gold is having problems with. Let's go find out. Oh, it is CoffeeZilla.
This is the new big.
Okay. Do I react to CoffeeZilla or do I react to Asmongold Gold reacting to CoffeeZilla? Tough question. It's a really, really tough question. Do I react to CoffeeZilla? Oh, but there's a lot for me to react to. Let me start with what's this? I have to do Johnny Harris, man. Because every time I get an idea, I always be like, nah, let me do that the next time. But right now, we're going to do India versus China versus Japan. India versus China explained. I thought there was the US.
This is the most rugged border on Earth.
Okay. Okay, alright. Yeah. So let me see if everything is okay.
It's the one between the two most populous countries, where
Okay.
a third of the world's population lives. Economies number 2 and 4. And between them, these massive mountains and a couple small countries and a lot of disputed territory that has turned this border into the highest battleground on Earth, where the militaries of both these nuclear-armed countries fight, but with sticks and clubs.
Oh my god.
Their forces could hear rifle fire echoing in these massive, valleys. They might think it's a larger attack, and it might escalate out of their control. Patrols can only be armed with sticks. They did end up killing a bunch of each other with sticks. Just one soldier decides to pull out his machine gun and go for it. That could escalate out of control quite easily.
Border region.
Like, that's insane. The fact that geography makes it possible to have an area in the world where wars are being fought, but you cannot fight a war with guns because the air would make it seem like it's a fucking crazy war, and you might end up using nukes, you might end up using ICBMs, you might end up using everything just because of the geographic outline. How insane is that, though? Like, geography can change and shape war. Oh god, that's insane. I really have to go back to being a geographer.
Is now home to tens of thousands of troops from both sides who are in a constant standoff patrolling these high mountains.
Must be tough, man. I
But
really have
this
to say.
3,500-kilometer border is not the only part of this relationship that matters.
Oh yeah?
I started working on this story a few months ago, and the first thing I did is I reached out to the New Press community.
What? My man Johnny is wearing a gold. My man is wearing a silver
This
chain.
relationship that matters.
He's fucking wearing a silver chain. Like, can somebody, like, do you understand? This is the first time in 4 years seeing Johnny and on a chain. Okay, bye.
I started working on this story a few months ago, and the first thing I did is I reached out to the New Press community. New Press is our new platform. We haven't actually launched it yet, but I reached out to the people on the wait list, and I asked them what questions and perspectives they have on the relationship between India and China. And boy, the community delivered. I got all of these responses from both curious people and from people who live in these countries or have expertise. And this video is richer in detail and accuracy because of it. This is the vision of New Press, already working before we've even launched. If you want to get on the waitlist, just go to newpress.com and you'll be hearing from me soon.
We're going to log in
I
soon.
want to take a look at this region.
Okay.
But to do so, I want to look at it through several different lenses,
Of
each
course.
of which reveals a different aspect of what's really going on between these two giants. This is an old relationship, but it's one that's reshaping very quickly as China races.
And to tell the truth, this one relationship can make or break the world. It can just make or break the world because they have two of the most biggest populations in the world. I'm not sure about Uzbekistan, but this nation or these two nations, I think they have approximately 2 to 3 billion people in them specifically. Just them. So imagine like the amount of work that can be done in each of these countries and the amount of destruction or casualties that can come out as a result of war. It's insane.
Is to project its power not just in Asia, but around the entire globe. Now, the United States is turning up the pressure here, putting India in a tricky position, and one that is only getting trickier as power quickly rearranges on the world stage.
Yeah. It always has to be America. It
Let's start
always
here.
has to be America.
The most visible symbol of the rivalry between these two.
Okay.
At least that's how it is today. But
Oh, it's
it
the
wasn't always
borderlines.
like this.
What? What did to this situation?
The modern versions of these countries were both born in the late 1940s, and almost immediately they committed to each other to be good neighbors, to have,
Yeah.
quote, peaceful coexistence, in their words.
Both these countries, recently independent governments recently established, were very friendly, very cooperative, working together at the Global Forum, wanting to look at the post-colonial countries,
Like,
coming
it
up,
is
Asian
important for you guys
solidarity,
to coexist.
Afro-Asian solidarity,
It
those
is.
kind of questions.
This might have been a lot easier if the map had stayed like this one from the 40s, where this remote, highly
Mongolia.
independent region of Tibet
Tibet.
separated the two countries.
India and China had never really interacted directly.
because there
Yes.
was this big cold desert called Tibet in between.
Tibet, this rugged roof of the world, led by a reincarnated Buddhist leader, the Dalai Lama. A place with distinct cultural
Led
traditions.
by what?
Called Tibet in between.
Tibet, this rugged roof of the world, led by a reincarnated Buddhist leader, the Dalai Lama. A place
Okay, so you're telling me that somewhere, somehow in the world, there was a reincarnated leader. How sure are we about that reincarnation part shit? Because I really want to be reincarnated. I really do. So how do I get reincarnated?
place with distinct cultural traditions and a desire to be an independent nation. This place had been a buffer between the two giants, and may have remained so. But almost immediately, China wants to secure this strategic high ground for their new country.
It is
So soon after the
reported.
Communist Party takes power in China, they send in troops to take Tibet. But they promise that they'll still let them govern.
Wait. I really have to learn more about this Tibet. I know that John is going to tell me about Tibet. Tibet, known as the roof of the world, is a high-altitude plateau region in Asia, home to the Tibetan people and cultures, now an autonomous region of China. Its capital, Lhasa, famous for Potal Palace and Jokhang Temple, a deeply Buddhist land. Tibet's spiritual leader is the Dalai Lama, who lives in exile after a failed uprising in 1959 led to China's military occupation, a topic of ongoing international dispute. Okay. Now I know more about this country. Now I do. Like, now I fucking do. What do they mean?
themselves. But now, look, these two are right up against each other.
India initially stays friendly, though a little more cautious towards China. They continue to try to peacefully coexist.
Okay.
But as more Chinese troops move into Tibet, the locals here feel that China's breaking their promise to let them retain their independence and their culture. So they rise up. They're afraid that the military is going to abduct the Dalai Lama. And soon the Chinese military is clashing with Tibetan resistance fighters, who, by the way, are quietly being supported by the United States, who opposes Communist China. In the middle of all of this, the Dalai Lama escapes on foot, fleeing through snow and mountain passes and rivers, crossing this border into India.
Where are they going then?
The Chinese Communist Party, particularly Mao, is very angry because Dalai Lama has fled to India and India has given asylum to Dalai Lama.
The Indian government gives him refuge in this little mountain town, where he establishes a Tibetan government in exile. Soon 80,000 of his fellow Tibetans follow him into India, where they still live today.
But if you leave your country following another leader, that's leaving an aging population. That's leaving an unguarded population. That's leaving a population without leaders at all. You know. So how can we say that you are welcome to come back into our... No, if we suffer with the Chinese, we are no longer the Tibetans. We are Chinese people. No.
Continuing to claim legitimate leadership over Tibet.
The Chinese accused India of trying to collude with the US to undermine China's sovereignty and to use this to change the disposition at the border as well.
So yeah, just a few years after they commit to peaceful friendship, tension is heating up between these two. 3 years later, these two giants are fighting a war in the mountains over border disputes. Some of them created by the fact that it's hard to draw borders on these rugged mountains, and others created by some British guy drawing a map in the 1800s.
Boy, a British-drawn border is a classic reason to fight a war. We'll get back to that war in a second. Now is as good a time as any to thank today's sponsors. Sponsors have no editorial influence in our videos, but they do make it possible for us to make these videos. And today's sponsor is one that I've used for about 3 years, and it has made my life less full of clutter. It's easy to forget that your information, your name, your date, your address, all of it is valuable. It's valuable to insurance companies and marketers who pay a lot of money to get that information so they can try to sell you stuff or try to sell other people stuff.
And we don't want that shit.
This is why junk mail and robocalls exist. And yet, we all have a right to ask to be taken off the lists that these data brokers use to buy and sell your information. but it's a really hard, long, cumbersome process. So Incogni does it for you. When I signed up for Incogni, I gave them permission to go out on my behalf to request that my name and information be taken off these lists.
Yes.
And then I just get to sit back and they do all the work, and I get to check in on it if I want and track the progress. I recently checked and saw that Incogni has taken me off over 1,000 of these lists. You can even give them a specific site that you want your data taken off, and they will go do it for you with their custom removal feature. Anyway, I have the unlimited plan, which does this all the time. It's constantly running in the background, protecting my privacy, and you can get 60% off your own plan if this is interesting to you if you go to incogni.com/Johnny Harris. Clicking that link helps support the channel, but it also gets you on this discount. 60% off. That's incogni.com/Johnny Harris. Oh, and I think you have to use the code Johnny Harris at checkout to get the discount.
Of course.
Thank you, Incogni, for sponsoring this video. Let's get back to this war between China and India that really changed everything for these two.
Back to geography.
India's defeated badly.
It was a huge humiliation for India.
Oh
It
my
lost.
days.
China was victorious.
China pretty handily wins this war. They now control a bunch of land in the mountains that is disputed. And suddenly, these two short-lived friends are locked in a cycle of mistrust and border disputes and military standoffs.
Oh, because
Since that
of what?
defeat, you've seen this boundary issue be at the core of the competition between the two countries.
No. These boundary situations have been the issue for every fucking one around the world. These fucking borders are the reason why the war in Ukraine is still ongoing today, because Putin has drawn new borders. Do you understand what happens when someone tries to draw new borders? When someone tries to invade another person's borders, it's war. It's no longer a visitation, but it's war. So why don't you just wipe away all of those things, and then we have lots of land, open land. Nobody owns that land. Nobody wants that, of course. You know, so it's just crazy how the situation is, man.
So the border dispute involved between India and China involves the longest undemarcated border anywhere in the world. The two Asian giants both have claims.
A major tension point in this long border is up here in the region of Kashmir, which is also disputed with Pakistan. The lines up here are messy as the 5,400 meter high glaciers are rugged. But the disputes are everywhere. They're peppered throughout this very long mountainous border. We made a whole video about this a while back when China released their big nationalistic map, if you want to go check that out and dive into each one. But the point is, there's border disputes and they're not ending anytime soon.
They won't end.
Each one
They won't
claims
end.
a large chunk
We have to
of
end this shit,
the
man.
land that the other one actually possesses and has people living on as we speak.
Okay.
And over the decades, these two countries have tried to manage this dispute, but they're very far from actually solving it.
Makes sense.
Soon, both countries had nuclear weapons. So the risk of escalation at this border was much scarier, much more existential. So in the 90s, the two countries agreed to not use guns or explosives within 2 kilometers of this dotted line, their disputed border. And honestly, the risk of escalation was also mitigated if you just look at where we are up here.
Yeah. Like, there's no war that's
It's not
fighting
easy
in
to
this
operate
place.
your military up here. in
No
the
ways.
mountains. At least it wasn't easy. By the early
Don't tell me
2000s,
things changed.
China's economy was taking off. It had integrated into the global economy.
Can people
And
fight
India's
in
was
those
also
mountainous
beginning
regions?
to grow more
No
steadily
way.
as well. And with that economic development came an emphasis on fortifying their borders and their land, including these borders up in the Himalayas.
And so what you suddenly have is, when you have roads,
Oh.
now railways even, definitely airports being built.
Oh.
So you see this bonanza of infrastructure in recent decades. Both sides are building trains and tunnels and airstrips and border
Oh.
fences. Though, if you look at the development here, you see that China has a clear edge.
Of course
Like,
they
look
do.
at Tibet. Back in 1959, when China just recently annexed Tibet, they only had 7,300 kilometers of roads.
What?
Today, that is more like 119,000 kilometers. That's like an average of 5.
Come on, man. Come on, like, the Chinese can build Africa today and tomorrow, and then in the fourth day everything is fine. You know, so to me the question is, who is a superpower in this situation? If a superpower, okay, maybe one nation can help us build whatever we want, and then one nation can oppress us into doing whatever they want. Who is the superpower in that situation?
Kilometers of road per day since 1959. On the other side of the border, India is also building.
Man,
Like over
that's
here, this
insane.
11-kilometer road infrastructure in the rugged mountains. This includes 2.5 kilometers worth of tunnel deep in the mountains that allows people and the military, if necessary, to access this border region year-round. China is also fortifying their border with humans. The New York Times recently did
You're telling me they
visual
have
investigation
human shield?
of hundreds of towns that are set up right along the border. The government pays people to move out here, signals to them that they are, quote, defenders of our nation's sacred land.
What?
They've been doing this in a number of areas along the India-China boundary and the China-Bhutan boundary as well, to essentially say we are populating this.
Just between 2018 and 2023,
Of course,
China's
when you
built
have
over
civilians,
600.
the idea is that when you have civilians across the border, it won't be as much easy as starting a war, you know, because if you maybe strike a civilian zone along the border, that's still a war crime, you know, the world will fight against you. So putting these communities around the borders, like, they mitigate the possibilities of war. That's what I think, you know, because I really think that people or leaders these days are really afraid of stepping on top of people or spilling blood just for the sake of war. I feel like that thing is unforgivable, and it can lead to a lot of downfall. You know?
Of these villages on the frontier. The Tibetans say that this infrastructure building and settlement is just another way of diluting their culture.
You know, the Chinese government says this brings about kind of big sort of economic gains. But of course, it also has a security dimension. It means it's able to control things there better.
On the other side of the border, India is matching this with efforts of their own. But they don't have nearly as deep of pockets as China does to keep pace.
Yeah. Like,
And
that's
to
insane
be
to
clear,
me.
none of this is actively hostile. Like, most of this infrastructure isn't primarily intended for military purposes.
What
But,
are we doing
like
then?
many other parts of the story, these roads and tunnels and trains and villages could be used for military purposes.
Now I get it. Freeways and all that are not for military to travel, but for people to get from one point to another. But in the event of a war, in an event of hostility, those roads will come handy as a military access or a military tool. Okay, it makes sense now.
Dual purpose infrastructure.
Infrastructure trains means you can get troops to places which are restive.
And in fact, this is already kind of happening. All of these roads allow troops to establish a presence in this rugged, disputed territory that before was kind of inaccessible. And a military presence leads to military standoffs.
Now you can send
and
military
standoffs
support.
sometimes break into violence. Now remember,
Like, I am sure at this point, the troops that lie at the borders, they don't count as a measure of conflict, you know, because if I was standing opposite my ops, I'm sure we would have had a lot of fights. This is like Spain, and not even Spain, but Real Madrid and Barcelona, you know. Real Madrid and Barcelona, they are from the same country, you know. Even China and India, they are from the same region, which is Asia. But when you're opposite or when you're facing each other for a very long time, like, feelings and all that, they change time to time, you know? So when they fight at the border, it's not nations fighting, but it's men having a brawl, you know. So India and China cannot act on the individuals that are at the borders, but from the government itself. That's insane.
remember that agreement that said that they won't use weapons or explosives or guns up here in the disputed areas. So these clashes involve sticks and clubs and stones. And even still, they're quite lethal. Like this one in 2020 resulted in dozens of deaths. These were the first deaths on this border in 45 years.
What?
It represented a new low for the relationship between these two.
What?
Dozens of deaths. These were the first deaths on this border in 45 years. It represented a new low for the relationship between these two. Okay, it's worth asking why these two massive countries are fighting over this super remote mountainous land.
Okay.
Nothing grows there. Nobody lives there.
Okay. Why are they fighting over this piece of land? It's because there's a line called the border.
There is no industry there. There is no agriculture there. This is primarily a cold desert. But even then, these territories become extremely important to the idea of those countries, what their national identity is. And they believe that by losing territory, they lost their sovereignty in a previous era. So they can't afford to lose any more territory now.
I think it's symbolic of the kind of relations between India and China. They're two very bold.
What? So we are fighting wars today because of what we lost yesterday. Not thinking about what we can lose today and tomorrow. What? Like, these wars are just based on the fact that we once lost land, and you know what? We're never going to lose land again. Is that it?
And very nationalistic powers now who do not buy into anything that erodes their status.
Now, the two countries have since diffused these border tensions since those flare-ups. But mistrust and tension remain the status quo up here, and both countries continue to manage.
As I say, this is not even amongst the leadership. Now it's about the men in the front lines, you know. This is why the men in the front lines is important. They are the ones that choose and decide wars. If one of them uses a gun, they risk escalating the situation far beyond what it can be. You know, so imagine if a war happens in the ground first, and then when it reaches the governing body, and then it's already a full-out war in the front lines. Of course, the governing body cannot just retreat from that war. It's already full-out war. So they need to have communications between the front line and the government, the governing
this
body.
Conflict instead of actually try to solve it. And that will remain the case as long as the ruling governments in both continue to derive their legitimacy and connect their national identity to controlling these bits of land in the mountains.
Yes. The identity of a country should be its people, not its borders, not its mountains. Yes.
Okay, wait. The border is not the only lens to see this conflict through.
Okay.
It's the one we spent the most time on because it's very important, very visual, but there are other expressions of the mistrust and the competition between these two, but these ones have a little more hope in them.
Let's see. Trade, yeah. What supersedes our hate? It's greed.
Look at all of this trade between the two most populous countries on Earth. Countries who trade with each other don't fight with each other, right?
Yeah.
Well, actually, this is kind of new. For most of their modern relationship, these two didn't really trade with each other.
It makes sense.
It started changing in like the late 70s, early 80s. China's entering the global market, accepting some version of capitalism, trading with the rest of the world, and India
telling
also.
You, even in a communist state, capitalism will always win. You know, we can hate each other, but our greed supersedes our hate. Like I'm telling you, we can hate each other, but if we are after the same thing, me and you, that hate would be a drive in our relationship. You know, I would be like, you know what, I used to hate you, but now we're drinking cocaine. Not cocaine. How can people drink cocaine? We are drinking cocktails together. We are drinking champagnes together. You understand?
So improving their domestic situation, and trade was the answer for both countries to unlock a massive amount of growth and prosperity. So they sign a series of trade agreements over the decades, deciding to, quote, fight poverty rather than each other.
Yeah.
Boy, that sounds hopeful.
You saw the two sides go from almost no trade to eventually China becoming India's #1 source trading partner in goods, at least.
And that's
Today,
insane.
China sells a lot of important things to India, like
To
electronic
everybody.
goods,
Everybody
machinery,
buys shit
textiles,
from China.
pharmaceuticals, transport equipment, fertilizer, a lot of stuff you need to keep your economy going. And India, in turn, sells stuff to China that's pretty important. Iron ore, minerals, chemicals,
Spices.
textiles, also electronic goods, animal products. Just remember, a third of all humanity lives in these two countries.
What the fuck did I say? What the heck did I say? Okay, maybe this was a calculation of before, but these guys have about 3 billion people amongst them. Look at India. India is 2 times smaller than China. How?
So
How does it
this is a
contain so
massive
many people?
amount of supply and demand.
Yeah.
Chinese companies were looking for markets for their goods, and India is one of the largest markets in the developing world. But that in itself created a different kind of relationship between the two countries, which was quite new.
Okay, so a lot of mutually beneficial trade, but look what happens when you split this line out by country. This tells a different story. Look at how much more China sells to India than the other way around.
Of course.
India is massively dependent
Of
on
course.
China. China is India's biggest trade partner. 80% of trade is in China's favor. So there's big economic vulnerability that India has vis-a-vis China.
India
That's
is
the relationship
keen to
between the
balance
biggest
that,
consumer
but
and
it's
the
also
biggest
blocked
producer. It's
investments
not
from,
going to
for
be
instance,
equal.
by telecoms provider Huawei. So it's a cautious relationship. And for two such hugely growing economies, they could really have much bigger relations, but I think there are political and cultural issues for why that's not the case.
In international relations, we have this thing called commercial peace theory that says that countries that are economically intertwined with each other are less likely to fight.
Yeah.
And yet, when you have an asymmetry in trade like this, and you have so much mutual distrust and a bunch of border disputes and a history of conflict, the more fitting IR theory here is weaponized interdependence. When tensions flared up in the border,
Such a beautiful word. And yet it spells doom to thousands and thousands of people. Like, how do you call something weaponized interdependence? Like, I thought the relationship was going to be very good between China and India, but when I thought the inequality was bound to happen because you have the biggest consumers and they are the biggest producers, even though we have the same amount of populations. And I didn't expect to have this amount of inequality. That's what I'm saying.
most recently, you saw both sides turn trade into a weapon. India was suddenly scrutinizing all of this investment coming from China. They were banning a bunch of Chinese apps, including, most famously, TikTok, citing data security and sovereignty concerns.
And that included the hugely popular TikTok.
China didn't retaliate immediately, but recently you're seeing China turn their trade into a weapon. They've been limiting Chinese exports of rare earth minerals and fertilizers to India.
If I hear of these rare earth materials once again, why don't you guys just come back to Africa? You know what?
And reminding India how much leverage they hold in this trade relationship.
Suddenly, from seeing China as an opportunity economically, India started seeing China much more as a vulnerability.
Okay, wait. Let's just make one thing clear. Neither side actually wants this.
Yeah.
Both stand to benefit greatly if they can figure out how to trade with each other peacefully.
Yeah.
But just like the border, trade is susceptible to being weaponized if tensions really heat up. So it's time to put on our next lens and zoom out.
How many lenses do we have into this situation, Jenny?
This is India's ocean. This is where they project power. They have a pretty sophisticated navy. And in recent decades, this Indian Ocean has become a very busy place.
Yeah.
This is the global economy. It's a bunch of ships moving around on water. And it has turned this ocean into the lifeblood of India's economy, who relies on the ocean for 95% of its trade. 80% of its crude oil comes through these routes, much of it moving through these tiny choke points that are vulnerable to pirates and unstable countries. And
you have the Suez Canal, you have the Strait of Hormuz, Bab al-Mandab, Strait of Malacca, Those are way, way important areas in the economic world for us not to know them.
Wars in this region. And it's not just India. China also relies on ships passing safely through this water to keep their economy going. So starting in the early 2000s,
if they
as
can't
China's become rich and joining the global trade community, China starts to expand where it projects power, starting just here in its neighborhood. But soon, their navy starts appearing all the way out here in the Indian Ocean, far from home, but along these vital trade routes that they must keep secure to keep their economy going.
China's forays into the Indian Ocean, in some ways, they're historical.
no.
There was one Chinese admiral that China points out was there kind of centuries ago. But largely, when China didn't have the navy it has today, you didn't see PLA Navy ships that much in the Indian Ocean.
Either way, China's military is out here in a big way, securing their trade. But as we're seeing time and time...
I need to make some tea. I really need to make some tea, man. Am I still on stream? Okay. Been not coming. All I need here. Whoa. Crazy situation. Rainfall in Soweto, and yeah, I'm fucked. I'm soon through this school. But there is serious amounts of rainfall, and my part of town, of course, people are here because maybe of the thumbnail, maybe because of the title of the video, as to what is the new stuff. But you motherfuckers will enjoy watching that. Me, let's say, and say how I just popped up to everybody. Loki, I have to say, it was a deadly stream. Loki. why did you click on the video. The question is why did you click on the stream? Oh my fucking god. My cap is fucked up, but it's fine. Right. The question is, where is 11 miles away from Soweto? Where is 11 miles away from Soweto? Yes, this can be considered peeping. If you stay and watch someone without even texting or even jumping into the chat, that must be legal somehow. I'm not sure how, but it has to be legal. I'm not sure how many people know this replays. Oh my fucking. Why can't they show the screen? What's the ass? the fuck is my coffee? Nah, no ways. Kabadi. What the fuck do they call it? Is it Kabadi or Kabati? Wow, the stream is still ongoing. That was years of silence. Years and years of silence. Maraki baby Ravakaba Hariha ha 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 ha. What up to that one viewer? Yeah. You better respond because streaming to 0 viewers is not an easy task. It's not an easy feat. Only those brave enough can do such a feat. But let me check if I'm still running. No, I'm not. Am I? Yes, I am. Sound check. I don't know if it's my sound or am I being extra silent. But Streamlabs has a very kind of sound. It requires me to scream and shout, which is something that's not achievable. Yeah, yes. It is a straight up. It is straight up S. Which is kinda unfortunate if you yeah. It is not what a nigga would want. But does it have anything related to desktop audio? No, it doesn't. Okay, let me just it is not what a nigga would want. But does it have anything related to desktop audio? No, it doesn't. Okay, let me just change the mics and maybe the sound is going to be a bit better. Maybe not. Sound check. Not working. Yeah, this is going to need noise levels that are quite unprecedented. You cannot have me shouting early in the morning, like that's something bizarre. But maybe I'll just go back to